If there's one thing they do right in Cuba, it's healthcare.
And it may be surprising to see just how much the Cuban healthcare system is thriving.
Cuba has the best healthcare system in the entire area.
One thing that is well established in the global health community is the strength of the Cuban national health system.
Despite being a poor country, Cuba has one of the strongest healthcare systems in the world.
And in many respects, much better than the U.S.
And so now, after all these years, one thing is clear. The Cuban people have free, universal health care.
El sistema nacional de salud cubano está destruido. Los consultorios están en muy malas condiciones.
Los hospitales abarrotados, la gente muriéndose en los pasillos, los pacientes sin oxígeno, hospitales sin corriente eléctrica.
No sé si ha visto en lo que suben las personas a las redes sociales. Eso es pura realidad.
Since the 1959 Communist Revolution in Cuba, there have been hundreds of newspaper articles, magazine features, news segments, and documentaries celebrating the marvel of its healthcare system.
Even President Castro talks openly about Cuba's long list of economic mistakes. But everyone approves of at least one investment the government has made in free universal health care.
All the independent health organizations in the world, and even our own CIA, believes that the Cubans have a pretty good health system.
It's all part of an elaborate propaganda campaign that disguises the reality of Cuban healthcare. Its clinics lack most routine supplies like antibiotics, bandages, syringes, and oxygen, and in some cases, running water. Their hallways are often occupied by ailing patients because there aren't enough doctors to treat their most basic needs. And its hospitals are unsanitary and decrepit. Cuban healthcare is exactly what you'd expect in a country impoverished by communism. The only thing that's changed is because of social media and the COVID-19 pandemic, the government's propaganda facade has finally started to shatter. And yet, in 2021, some journalists were falling for the claim that the Cuban government had set the model for its response to COVID.
We begin today's show looking at how Cuba has successfully fought the pandemic. Since last year, only about 440 Cubans have died from COVID-19, giving the island one of the lowest death rates per capita in the world.
3 months after that broadcast, Cubans took to the streets and to Twitter and Facebook, in part to call attention to what the pandemic had actually meant for the island nation's healthcare system.
In the past few weeks, Cuba has experienced its biggest spike in coronavirus cases yet. At the same time, it is getting harder to find food on the island.
The protests that swept across Cuba, the largest in decades, stunned the communist-run government.
In the 15 years since the release of Michael Moore's documentary Sicko, which celebrated Cuban healthcare,
Their only sin when it comes to healthcare seems to be that they don't do it for a profit.
everyday citizens have been armed with smartphones, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, empowering them to tell the truth about what it's really like to walk into a Cuban hospital. So when you say that all you have to do to realize the truth about the Cuban healthcare system is actually go to Cuba, well, you have the example of someone who did go, who was Michael Moore, and he came up with Sicko, which obviously presents the Cuban healthcare system as a great triumph.
I meant do not go on one of those stage Potemkin tours.
Maria Werlau is an author, analyst, and the founder of the Cuba Archive, which promotes human rights through research.
He went to a facility that was prepared to receive him, that was part of this montage. You know, clearly, that wouldn't stand today because you have so many videos coming out, I think, from facilities in Cuba.
Is that due to social media?
It's due to social media and to telephones. People are, you know, it's almost daily. Thing is, it's mostly in Spanish and mostly you have to look for them. But if you go on YouTube and, on Facebook, it's daily. Daily people are posting this.
So how did the Castro regime's propaganda machine manage to fool so many for so long? The answer lies with Cuba's foreign medical missions, which are teams of healthcare professionals dispatched to provide emergency and routine care to foreign countries.
Los médicos han sido educados en la idea de salvar vida.
The first medical mission was sent to Algeria in 1963. After the fall of the Soviet Union, when the government lost its major source of aid, the program was ramped up significantly as a source of revenue for the impoverished nation. The Cuban government has promoted the missions as a humanitarian endeavor and a demonstration of the community spirit and selflessness that's central to the communist project. In his 1960 speech on revolutionary medicine, the Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara said that individualism must disappear in Cuba. He recounted the story of a group of physicians in Havana who demanded remuneration before